chop off a tiny bit of it.
For that, isn't it?
Well, it started back in December. It's been around. It's an ephemeral that lasts all year. Okay, so I'm going to throw this in. I've got all these amazing chickweed. And if you wouldn't mind cutting up for me all of this lamb's quarter and make it real fine, and we'll put that in here as well. So we're not going to use any lettuce. We're just using all these wild ingredients. And chop some of the peppermint too. Are you hungry?
Yes. I remember last time we did the burdock tacos. The thing I noticed about it, not only do they taste great, you didn't feel tired afterwards, you felt energetic.
Yeah.
As opposed to eating, regular meat tacos. I feel like taking a nap afterwards, but not after the burdock tacos.
Yeah.
The burdock tacos energized us.
Amen.
Hope that's enough.
So Brendan's here today to help us with our garden, and he's going to be promoting the cool things he's doing on our Wild Blessings channel. So I'm very, very honored that he's here to be with us. Thanks, buddy.
All right, so one of the things I'm focusing on this year is outfoxing wildlife. So I do everything organically, and there are a lot of good organic solutions that you can go to Home Depot and Lowe's to buy too, but they cost a lot of money. For instance, a liquid fence costs about $32 a quart for concentrate, and you can go through a lot of that. And it's good for deer. You put a perimeter barrier down. So I'm making my own wildlife barriers, and the two critters that I'm dealing with, one squirrel and two deer. So the squirrel, let me tell you what he did to us. So I have this this deck where I've planted tender lettuces and a biothinning garden with bitter greens like beet greens and arugula. So you're supposed to eat these before you have a meal, and it's supposed to help you with digestion.
Or dandelion greens.
Yeah, dandelion greens would do the same thing too. But so anyway, the squirrel doesn't want to give us peace about this, and it's on our deck. So what he's done is he doesn't come. He could care less about the greens. What he wants to do is find the nuts he buried in my raised beds on the deck from last year. So his method is to come on the deck and gouge everything out looking for the nuts. Now I'm confused. I'm convinced that they really don't remember where they put their nuts. So they're just digging up everything looking for them, because they don't get them the first or second or third time. They might get them after 20 attempts. So I've tried everything. I bought an ultrasonic noisemaker. I've put down mint in cotton balls. And this is this is how the exchange will be. Whether it's my wife or I coming home, he'll be on the deck. He'll run off the deck to the nearby oak tree and stare us down and go, and he really thinks it's his territory, and he's angry that he has to give ground. So I was.
Because you don't have a Jack Russell Terrier.
I know the Jack Russell Terrier would have treated him. He probably would have climbed up the tree and captured him. But so I did find a solution. So my goal is to come up with natural solutions that I can make at home that are inexpensive to outfox the wildlife. And I found this video on YouTube. I think it was the Essayan family, and it was so simple. You just take crushed red pepper and you sprinkle it on the ground in the beds, and it just irritate them. So when they're digging, it'll go up into their nostrils, and the red pepper will give them a negative experience. And he's come back.
Like, so how much do you use?
Well, I don't know. It was maybe like a 16-ounce container, and I used maybe 40% of it, 30% of it on all of my beds. I've got maybe like 4 beds, 5 beds on my deck.
Okay. So like a tablespoon around each plant?
Yeah, something like that. I just took it and shook it around, But I know it works because there was just one small pot that I didn't put this crushed red pepper in, and that's the pot that the squirrel came back and gouged the whole plant out of.
Wow.
He didn't touch anything else, so that seems to be working so far.
I bet it would work for chipmunks too.
Probably work for anybody, anything.
Probably work for Max.
Probably work for anything, yeah. Who wants to have crushed red hot pepper up their nose, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, that's awesome. And then tell me what you're using for what
deer.
Was it? You were saying
deer.
You're making some type of a
concoction.
Solution. What was that?
Yeah, so I'm determined not to have to buy even organic sprays to outfox the wildlife. And the other critter is deer. Mm-hmm. So I know the deer are coming in. Their hoof prints in my garden.
Yeah.
In the garden start, I just have the brassicas out there now. I've got the collards and the cabbage and the broccoli, and they haven't eaten them. They don't like them for some reason. They like the turnip greens though, and they'll come in and they'll snoop around the garden. So I've employed two methods to try to keep them out of there, and so far it seems to be working. I made my own homemade garlic spray or garlic liquid. I'll put about in a gallon. Put about 3 cloves of garlic. I forget how much mint essential oil and hot pepper, hot sauce. Mix it up, let it sit overnight, and then strain it and put it around the perimeters or near the plants. And it seems to be keeping them away.
Do you have to have exact dimensions or ratios, or do you have a recipe, or just?
Yeah, there is a recipe. I can't remember it off the top of my head.
Right. Would you share it with us?
I would. I'll send you the recipe.
Nice.
Yeah, for sure.
And that sounds like it would be very effective.
Yeah, so my goal this year is to outfox wildlife naturally and do it at home inexpensively. So
Yeah.
I'll show you my successes and failures. By the end of the year, we'll see what worked and what didn't work.
That's so great. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, so this is where I've been growing my seeds, and I did a bunch of cold weather plants, but to tell you the truth, I have no idea which one is which because I got them mixed up and I didn't label them, which I know you told me to label things. So I can tell that this is now lettuce.
That's lettuce.
But when it was just seeds, or when it was first coming up, I had no idea. So do you have any idea what these
this
are?
this one here is distinctive to me with the little white
That's
vein there.
bok
That's
choy,
bok
I think.
choy, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
I'm excited about
Oriental
that.
cabbage bok choy, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, do they look happy to you? And I don't know whether I should take scissors and cut off these little extras, or like, can I do both of those? Can I plant both, or should I get rid of one, or what do you recommend?
If there's only two, I would leave them both in there. They'll find a way. They'll be fine.
Look around and tell me which ones you would cut something out of.
Oh, you mean thin out?
Yeah. Do I need to thin
Oh, yeah.
anything? I cut a bunch of them, but I wasn't sure if I should cut more. I think this one's coming from over here.
Okay.
Well, no, it's not.
No, they're in there, yeah.
You're right,
You
yeah.
might want to take one. I wouldn't put more than two in one spot, although they seem to make a way. Something like, yeah, I would. You know what? At this point, they're kind of delicate, and it's like surgery to have to separate them. I would just put them in there, and then you could actually, with the scissors, cut out, if there's like more than two of them, cut the third or fourth.
Is there any that you would cut out and like say that one there? Is that one or
No, there's like
5?
no. It's only about 3.
What about here? It looks like there's a
When it
lot
comes to
in here.
greens, you know what? If you would see my greens, I planted them outside in a row, and they're about this big now, and it's just an intense planting. So they're all growing closely together. So I wouldn't worry about any of these. Just plant them.
Okay, well, where should I plant them? And can I take them out there now? Like, it got really cold the other night. It was less than 30 degrees.
These are all winter hardy, or cold hardy, I should say. And they would have survived outside. You started them inside, so they're a little tender. So what you need to do is start transitioning them, bring them outside for a few hours in the day, and then bring them back.
For how many days do I have to do that?
You probably want to do it for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Now for about 2 weeks, that's ideal. If you just throw them out there and plant them, they may be fine too. But like I said, I've had all of this type of cold hardy stuff growing outdoors, and then we went down to 7 degrees one night, and they all survived. And I just seeded them outside.
But they were seeded outside.
Yes.
All right. So the lettuces. So this is what? Is that a Brussels sprout? Can you tell what that is?
To me, it looks like a collard.
Or a cabbage?
It's in the brassica.
It's in the not do a collard.
It is in the brassica family. That could be
I did Brussels sprouts, and I did gourmet. This is Swiss chard. I think that's this.
That's this for sure.
So this cabbage, maybe? It's so funny. I know all the wild edible leaves at all stages, but I don't know these things.
Yeah.
What's this? Do you know? Guys, make sure you label everything.
I don't know for sure. I couldn't tell you
Oh,
for
maybe
sure.
radish. Well, radish would have come up quick.
I was going to say radish.
I don't
This
think
leaf
so.
looks like a radish. This was what radish looks like. It could be a radish.
Now, have you ever grown daikon radishes? Because I just got some seeds.
No.
I want to. I love those things.
I treat radishes when I've pulled up one crop and there's a spot, I just throw the radish seeds down and they come up quickly and whatever I have.
But do you know how big daikon radishes are?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like your arm. They're
I have a friend
huge.
that ordered, they were so excited, they ordered watermelon radishes. They look like watermelons.
Really?
Yeah, I've never done that, but.
Oh, how fun. Okay, let's go
That's so
outside.
exciting, and I just wanted to say about the miracle of seeds.
Yes, tell me what you were
that
thinking.
The spring is my favorite time of year because if you think about it, from a tiny little seed, like it says in the Bible, from a mustard seed, it grows into this great bush, and it produces. So these will have in their DNA to produce a giant plant that could nourish us, and it's a miracle of life, and it's in the DNA, and only God could do that.
Yeah,
So.
the miracle is in the seed. And there's so many more generations that are represented in that one seed as well.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Oh, I just found out that my grandmother had me inside of her when my when she was pregnant for my mother at 4 months of age. Like when she was 4 months pregnant, my mom had all of her eggs, including me. So for every woman,
Wow, I've never thought
is
about
that not amazing?
That's amazing. I haven't thought
Oh,
about
life is incredible. God is amazing.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go outside then.
Okay.
Okay, so Brendan, tell us when we should plant things.
Well, this takes the guesswork out of it. You can go to your county extension and print out a sheet or just look at it online and it'll tell you exactly for your zone. For instance, where we are right now,
What zone is this?
we're in zone 6 up here. The Boone area is zone 6.
Okay.
So in zone 6, it says, for instance, in March, you could plant arugula, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower. These are all the cold hardy plants. And it'll tell you exactly when you could plant a tomato. A tomato should be planted in this spot. You should wait until, according to this, June. Actually, it's telling you to wait till June. No, actually, you could start planting towards the end of May in this
Have you
area.
planted your seeds yet indoors
Oh, yeah.
for tomatoes?
Oh, my tomatoes are maybe 10
Oh,
inches tall.
I should have done that.
Yeah, I could send you a picture of them,
Okay, do that.
a video of them. Yeah, I've got peppers probably about 7 inches tall and tomatoes probably about 10 inches tall.
So you're saying get that from the cooperative extension?
Yeah, just go online and it'll tell you for your zone exact, and it actually has like a color bar chart. It says plant all of these within this time frame. So this is the when. That's very important. The timing is everything when it comes to planting a garden.
Yeah.
You plant it too soon, for certain things they'll get frosted and they'll die. You plant them too late, like carrots and brassicas. If you plant them any later than now, say even in this area, they're going to just go to seed because they hate the heat. You can plant them almost as soon as the snow goes. They love the cold, and they'll be completely done and harvested. You can harvest your carrots if you plant them in March. You could have your carrots in May. It's 60. Almost everything produces in 60 days. So timing is everything. The other part is the how. So that's where I could help. I'm a garden coach, a food garden coach, and I could help with the how. So once you plant them, it's not just stick the baby in the ground and then walk away.
Yeah.
You need to know if it should be in full sun and shade, how much to water, how to keep critters away, if it needs a lot of fertilizer, if you just leave it alone, if it likes moisture, if you like it dry. And also, what do you do when the bugs come? So I do everything naturally and organically, and I have found things that work for me and my garden. And I've been doing this since I was a little kid. My grandmother I don't think she ever bought a can of tomatoes, a jar of tomatoes.
Wow.
She made her own tomato sauce or on pizza. And somehow it took with me. And I say next to the Lord and my wife, my passion is for plants.
Yeah.
So I think that's where you and I could work together. I want to dabble in wild edibles, and this is where you're really well versed. And you want to dabble a little bit in gardening. And I'm well versed in this, so
Amen.
we could mix together.
I love that. What did you think of your wild food lunch?
Oh, it was excellent.
Yeah.
The one thing I like about the wild food lunch is that when you're finished eating, you feel energetic, not tired.
Yeah.
So this was awesome today. And the last time we came over, we had the tacos, the burdock tacos.
Yeah.
And it tasted better than the beef tacos. And when you were finished eating, and I ate a lot, you feel energetic, not tired, because you've got stuff that's got chlorophyll from the sun, like the dandelions. And it's just so energy giving, not energy taking. You don't need a nap after eating wild edibles.
I agree. All right, so Brendan, this is Vegetable Hill, and it's kind of misnamed because the only thing that really thrives here are my weeds, which I do love.
And lamps are growing down there, or irises? What is that clump?
Oh, those are Cosmia. Cosmia. They're orange and they look really creepy, but they're not edible, but they're beautiful. And I have a lot of irises down there, and I just have those for eye candy. All right, anyway, so I was disappointed because none of my pumpkins grew on my vegetable hill, and really I only got one zucchini out of all of my zucchini plants I had planted along here, and I probably got 1 or 2 tomatoes. I had the tomatoes along this front row. So what's your advice concerning what I just shared?
Well, I'll speak to you in language that you can understand. Wild edibles, the seeds may fall all over, but the only place they're really going to thrive is where they want to grow. They're not going to. They might survive, but they won't thrive. And it's the same thing with cultivated garden plants. You want to put them where they're happy. My rule of thumb in my garden is, I'm going to grow things that are happy, and if they're not happy, I won't put them back in that spot again. Even if they're in the ideal situation, they could still not be happy in your garden. But in your case, the tomatoes just want a lot of sun. They're so hot, they're so greedy for sun. they need at least 6 hours of sun.
All tomatoes?
Yeah, well, the cherry tomatoes are a little bit more forgiving, but
So I can put cherry tomatoes here?
if you get 6 hours, I can't tell from here now if you have 6 hours of sun. But the other rule of thumb is you could put any kind of leafy green, and if you've got Max here to defend the garden from rabbits and squirrels or whatever might want it, you could plant stuff like collard greens and almost anything that's a leaf, or even some root crops like carrots. They just won't grow as quickly, but you'll get them. You can plant carrots and leafy greens in less sun.
What about okra?
You know, I'm new to the South. I'm from New York, and I've never even had okra until I've only had it pickled. But from what I could observe, and I observe garden plants, that's what I do. Wherever I go, I'm like, wow, look at that. I noticed the okra is growing in full sun, and it could take drought, and when everything else is like fading away, languishing, the okra is like happy in full drought, full sun. So I think they're going to want full sun too, even though I'm not an expert on okra.
Okay, well, I love okra.
I wouldn't plant that in the shade, no way.
Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and plant those. So he brought me some collard greens. I'm excited about those.
I also brought you some weeds too.
Oh, you brought me some weeds.
Yeah.
Aw. Oh, my favorite weed.
Look at that. It's one of my favorites too.
Oh,
Plantain.
I love
What is
it.
Plantago major, right?
It is.
This one here is a lifesaver for me because I am allergic to yellow jackets. I don't think I've ever been bitten by a honeybee, but the yellow jackets, if perchance I should step on one of their nests, I mean, my fingers swell up. I go to the hospital. I get steroids. Not since I've found plantain.
No
I
need.
just chew it and make like a field poultice out of it, and it takes the poison out of the sting.
Yeah.
And this has been like.
Oh, I got to tell you my favorite story. So one of my good friends was drinking a soda pop, and she put it down for, I don't know, 40 minutes.
Oh no.
She came back and she drank, started drinking, and 8 or 9 hornets got in her mouth and stung the inside of her mouth.
Oh my gosh.
So the first thing her husband did was take a picture of her. So I have a picture of her face swollen.
Yeah.
And then, but immediately she started chewing on plantain leaves, and within an hour, her face had gone down significantly, and by the next day, her face was normal. She never had to go to the ER or anything, and it's only because of plantain.
Yeah, amen to that.
I'll show you the pictures. It'll blow your
I
mind.
really like plantain a lot.
Yeah, me too.
So.
Oh,
So
that's
actually,
exciting. Thank you
to
so
tell
much.
Where I had a fail last year was in a spot where I put potatoes.
Uh-huh.
And I've grown potatoes successfully many times before, but this spot was not the right spot for it. It was too moist. And guess what I'm going to plant there now?
Plantain.
Plantain. It's a little moist. Plantain can take moist, and it can take a little shade too. So.
It also likes to go where you walk. I've noticed that.
Yeah, I just hope it doesn't take over the
So
whole,
is that a gift
the whole
for me?
lawn. Yes, it is. This is for you.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes.
Aw.
Here's your plantain.
Okay. So can we plant some of those collard greens today?
Sure.
That'd be fun. And they've already been hardened off.
Yeah, these guys have been sitting outside the whole time.
So I'm going to bring my guys out. Don't you think I should for a couple of days, all of my little
Yeah,
seedlings?
yeah. These are ready to plant though. These are hardened off.
All right, I will do that today. Okay, so that's exciting.
Crops, they want full sun, so that's not the spot for it. But there is a plant for every situation. There is something that will grow in every situation. So as I had mentioned before, leafy greens will grow in dappled shade. In fact, they'll prefer it. They don't like to have afternoon sun, which you have right behind you in the south. So that's where the afternoon sun would be. So you could plant arugula arugula would excel here.
Yeah, but I have a lot of space. So if you had this space, what would you put here? Just lettuces? I mean, that's a lot of lettuce.
Well, you know, if you want to eat a salad a day, I mean, you probably find it in the woods, but for me, I have to grow a lot of greens to get a salad a day. So I would make rows. You have rows here. I'd put a lot of space in between them so you could walk through them and cultivate them and keep the weeds out. But you could probably put, in the spot that you have here, 1, 2, 3, well, there's rocks right there. I would say you could put 3 rows of greens here. Arugula, you could put beets or carrots. They would grow too, but they would grow slowly and they would give you smaller root crops. And you could put collards here too.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
where do you recommend putting those pumpkins and stuff?
They would have to be in the full sun. The pumpkin, actually, what you want to do is put at the edge of one of your sunny beds.
Well, let's go up to the
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, I don't want you to think that I have not been a good student because we really worked hard. We got the wood chips like you told us to, and we got the soil. You taught us a lot about soil. So tell me what you think of what we've got here.
Well, if you've got good soil, you've got everything.
Tell us why.
If you think about it, when things are rotting and breaking down in nature, whether they be leaves or wood chips or whatever, the microorganisms start working on them and the worms start working on them, and then it creates its own fertilizer. That's the difference between conventional and organic fertilizer, by the way. Organic fertilizer works gets the soil healthy, and conventional fertilizer will give it a quick perk like a give a plant the quick perk like a Twinkie, but it does nothing to the soil. In fact, it may harm the microorganisms in the soil. But your soil, you got
Like
like
a
a living,
Twinkie.
look at this. This is like
Aren't
a
you
living,
proud of me?
this is a living factory
Well,
here.
it's God does this, but I mean,
yeah, this is a
yeah.
beautiful thing. This is what we call black gold.
Black gold,
This
yeah.
is really nice. You did a good job with the soil. So that was the first year. So don't be surprised if the first year you had trials and errors. This is the year that you're going to be like kicking it. It's really
I'm
gonna
so
work.
excited.
It's going to really work because
Yeah.
this is broken down the way you need it to
Yeah.
break down.
Yeah.
So once it breaks down to this point, it's just all good. It just gets better and better.
Nice.
So.
Okay, so now we're in the backyard, and
Yeah.
I wanted to just briefly show you. This has pretty good afternoon sun.
Uh-huh.
And so what do you recommend putting back here? I've got the 3 raised beds going down the stairs, and I have this area here, which I'm going to dig up. All of this is oxide daisy. I don't need that there. So what would you recommend?
The clue for me is, since we're here now in beginning of April, and I can't tell what this is going to look like when everything leaves out of the trees, but if it's going to get like 5 or 6 hours of sun, you could plant almost anything. But the fact that you got cherry tomatoes down there means you get enough sun, because tomatoes are not going to grow unless they get enough sun. So what we could do here is you could put the cherry tomatoes back there again. You could put eggplant here.
Nice.
And then you could put the okra here if you wanted to.
Or the peppers.
Or peppers too, yeah.
Yeah, can
pepper.
I do the peppers along
It all depends. I have a feeling this is going to be somehow a little bit more shady here. So you could put leafy greens over here again. You could put, I would put the basil and cilantro. You'd be able to get some of that there as long as you get 4 hours worth of sun. And if you wanted to get some color out of it, eye candy, I would put like the portulaca, which is in the purslane family.
I love purslane.
And I thought they were a full sun, but I have found that they grow in partial shade too. So.
What would you do here? I hate this wall. What would you do to cover that wall?
Well, if you're talking to me, you're talking about edibles. So
Right.
I like to put something that you could use,
Yes.
you know, either as a medicine or a food. So I'd put a trellis here, and I would grow the trellising climbing beans up there. The trellising and climbing snap beans.
Okay.
If it's going to get enough sun, it looks like it does.
It really does, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. And I have lots of lemon balm over here. Let's go talk about the vegetable factory garden.
Okay.
All right, so this is my medicinal herb garden that turned into kind of like a disaster. What would you do?
Well, the first thing I would do is if you want to put something new, you've got to get rid of the old. This creeping Jenny is all right, but it's got to go. And in the oxeye daisy too, I'm sure you could rehome it somewhere else because you need to give room for the roots for the new herbs you're going to put here. This should be your herb garden, your medicinal herb garden. You could have lavender, you've got the sage, and you've got the thyme. So you could put lavender and, what was the other one we're thinking about? Rosemary. So I would just have this whole thing, one big wall of medicinal herbs.
Would you keep all of the rosemary in one spot? Like how many rosemary plants would you do?
Rosemary gets huge. I was at Whole Foods last night. There was a rosemary bush that was like 10 feet wide.
What?
It must be a special cultivar.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually took some cuttings and I'm trying to start them. But normally rosemary is only going to get about this big.
So maybe 3 of them?
Yeah, you know what? I would continue with the sage. Put like 2 more sage and the rest raspberry. Maybe throw a lavender in the middle.
You mean lavender?
Lavender.
And rosemary. You said raspberry.
I'm sorry. Lavender and rosemary.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
And then would you get rid of all this creeping Jenny up here as well?
I would, because that's what it's going to do. It's going to creep. It's going to creep
But
back in.
there's really nothing that I can plant there. Maybe I could just take all of this creeping Jenny and put it up underneath the spruce tree. What do you think?
My opinion, maybe just leave the stuff that's up there and keep it in check and get rid of all the one here. Move the one that's here.
Okay.
Or repurpose it or make it into a tincture or something. You know what to do with this stuff.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know anything about creeping Jenny.
I don't either.
If you guys know, let me know.
Yeah.
Okay, Brandon, this is my vegetable factory garden. It's the only place that I get full sun.
Okay.
And so Jason built for me a trellis right there. That's called Zone A.
Yep.
And then he built that for cucumbers. I didn't get any cucumbers. I was very disappointed. I got 1 butternut squash going up that trellis. The tomatoes did pretty well. I put them inside of these things.
Yeah.
But I envisioned getting one of these cow fences and making an arch, a big arch, instead of this little arch here. So if you tell me what to do, what would you recommend here?
Well, you're telling me what you want to plant here, and I'm here to tell you what you can and cannot do, what's possible and what's not possible. So if you want to put that arch in the middle, you can do that. I would put cucumbers up the arch. That'll work. That'll work. And now that your soil has gotten really it's moved into its final state, I think you're going to do much better this year. The other problem is too, I'm feeling like since you're a wild edible person, that you do a little bit too much benign neglect. So when you have a garden, you do have to baby the garden. You have to check it out every day, see if the bugs came, and you've got to water.
Kind of like your kids.
Water. You could put an automatic watering system. I just did in my house with drip tape. You can put it on a timer, but you have to baby them. It's not like nature. This is cultivated, so you have to come out here and actually baby these plants. So if they don't get enough water, they won't grow.
Okay.
But I think you're going to do great with the cucumbers, and if the tomatoes worked, I'd put 2 tomatoes, put your arch in the middle, and you could grow a lot of stuff on that arch. You could have like an edible arch. You could have cherry tomatoes, which are indeterminate. They just grow as a vine. You could have cucumbers. You could have beans. Those 3 things alone should give you a beautiful arch. And not only that, the shade that is produced from the arch could make a sanctuary for lettuce. You could put lettuce in the shade of the arch, and the lettuce likes just a minimal amount of sun.
But if I'm going to do lettuce on Vegetable Hill, maybe I should not use the arch here so that I can have just full sun. What do you think?
Well, if you do put the arch here, it's going to change the landscape altogether. It's going to take the full sun away. So if you don't want to have that happen, then don't use the arch. Because the arch will definitely take some of this real estate away. If this was my place and it's my only sunny spot, I would go with full sun plants. You could grow salad tomatoes here, the full size ones. They want full sun. You can grow zucchini here. You can grow cucumbers here. You can grow peppers here. And if you wanted to grow, I wouldn't put pumpkin or squash here or butternut. It's going to take over the whole thing, but I have an idea for another spot that we can grow that.
For another spot?
Yes, another spot.
Okay, tell me. I want to hear.
It's right there.
Right here?
Right there on your wooden wall there with your tiers.
What are you thinking?
Well, what's going to happen with a vining plant like butternut squash or winter squash? I planted it last year and it was like Jonah's vine. It took over like a 30-foot area. Have it grow down off of the wall. And you could even do pumpkins too. Have them grow down off of the wall, and you won't take up any space. It'll just grow down off the wall into your driveway a little bit.
That would be amazing. That would cover that old wall too, which looks kind of sad.
It will cover the whole wall.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
It'll just be big, beautiful
So how many
cucurbit.
pumpkins would you plant there?
I'd probably do 3 pumpkins and butternut squash or acorn squash. Maybe like 5 of those, and just let the whole vine.
Okay, I want you to show me exactly where you would plant
Okay,
them.
that's fine.
That's exciting. All right, and then this is my green bean pole, and I usually just put a bunch of strings up there, and I anchor them down and plant beans at the bottom of the strings, and it turns out really good.
You know, you could put at the bottom.
What?
You could put the bush beans. You could have this whole thing a bean theme. You could have the growing beans, and then at the bottom.
Can they grow underneath the teepee?
I wouldn't put them in a shady spot, but around the perimeter.
What about this area here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much this fig tree fills in, but if you want to keep it a thing, have your vining beans and your bush beans.
Okay,
You can have keep the whole thing in beans.
Two raised beds here.
Well, the first thing I think about is more herbs like basil and cilantro.
All right, so I'm really thankful for this time that we've had together. It makes me look at my land with new eyes and lots of possibilities, and I feel like I can spend my energies doing something that's going to make a difference and will have the results that we're hoping for. So thank you so much, Brendan.
You're welcome. And that's what I love to do too. I love to give people hope and encouragement because I've learned through trial and error myself, so I could help other people get through every phase of whatever challenge you might have and be like your coach in your corner. And I'm actually a garden coach, so normally I offer my garden coaching for $150 for the initial consult, and for the Wild Blessings followers, I'm going to reduce that to half, and that can be done virtually on Zoom too. So if anybody wants to have an initial consult with me, it'll be $75, not $150. And then I'm also a coach to help along the way too. If you need help along the way, I can answer the how to do this, how to keep the bugs away, how to keep the pests away, how much should you water, where should you put this, why didn't this work last year, what can we do differently this year. I could help with that.
Oh, you've answered so many of my questions. I'm so excited. Thank you so much. So the miracle's in the seed, and God does all the growing. We just have to do a little bit of wisdom. Is like partnering with Him, I think.
And I just went in with this too. So you do the wild end of it, you do the wild edibles, and I do the cultivated end of it. And I just wanted to end with with an example from God's Word. If you look in the Bible, it says that God promised them when they go into the promised land that they would inherit their blessing. And the biggest part of their blessing was vineyards they didn't plant and wells they didn't dig. So part of it was a cultivated garden. But the cultivated garden does take work, but it's enjoyable. For me, it's enjoyable to see something come from a little seed into harvest and take care of it along the way. It's a joy for me. It's my favorite hobby.
Yeah.
So
And you're getting the vitamin D and the fresh air, and you're partnering with the Lord.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. And
Absolutely.
I love eating.
Yeah.
However,
The carrots that we dug up, they were like, we call them refrigerator carrots. We planted them. We
them.
planted them in September,
yeah.
and we just harvested them about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Wow.
And they were when they first come out of the ground, they're so sweet.
Wow.
It's better than, a flavored drink or a candy or anything like that, and it's good for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And so contact Brendan if you want to get on, have him on your team as your garden coach. Thanks, Brendan. All right, so we are in one of these little raised beds I have, and Brendan has brought me some collard greens, and he's going to show me how to optimally plant them. And interestingly, I had this elderberry bush right here, and one of them was rhizoming out into the middle of my bed, so I just dug it up for him. And guys, you don't need to go buy elderberry bushes. If you know a friend who has one, just go and borrow or take some of their abundance, because it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I don't have any elderberry on my property. So
Well, I can teach you how to propagate lots of them once you get some.
So we've just weeded this and cleaned it out a little bit and flattened out a little bit, and now we want to plant collards. I'm from the north, as you could tell from my voice. So I have discovered collard greens. My wife found this recipe, and they're awesome. I could eat them every day. She makes such a good recipe. In fact, if you want the recipe,
I do want the recipe.
get through to me. And it's a vegetarian collard green too.
Okay.
But it was so good. So we grow a lot of this. I mean, we had collard greens over winter in our property, and we're processing them and canning them in the spring. But anyway, we're planting collard greens here now. This is the beginning of April here, and well, they could just grow in cold anyway, but this is perfect. So I set them out. They're going to be about, eyeball them, about 18 inches apart. And they were green, so it's okay if they grow close right into each other.
That's about 12 inches apart. There we go.
So we've already loosened up the soil. And this is good soil here too, by the way. And
We've been working on our
sometimes
soil.
I don't even use, oh yeah, look at the clay is way beneath that, but the top of it, this is really good. So.
Now there's 2 plants there. Do you
That's
see
okay.
that? That's okay?
If there was like 5, I would worry about it, but. So we're planting them further closer to the wall. So. And this soil is already rich. You probably don't even have to add any fertilizer. And they could take an amount of shade. I mean, if they had 4 hours of sun, it'd be enough. But you grew tomatoes just a few feet behind you, so if that's any indication of what this sun situation is, it's going to be great. So here's your collard greens. You wanted to, and the thing I want to encourage someone, if you want to eat a meal, you have to plant enough of the food.
Okay.
So let's put 5 collard greens in here so you can at least get an ample amount. And I think each one is going to make, oh wait, a row of 20 makes about 8 pounds. A row of about 20 feet. So you need a bit to do anything. But if you
So
like
this will
them,
be my collard green patch
yeah.
next to my elderberry bush. Oh, and tell us about that mason thing that you found.
Yeah, this is the best weeder you're ever going to get. Is a mason hammer. And can I pull up this here?
Yeah. That's self-heal.
I mean, it gets to the bottom of the root. It just gets underneath the root and pulls it up.
And it's nice and firm.
Yeah.
I love that.
So we're going to put them in between this row here.
All right. And how big do they get?
This is probably going to get about, let's see. They're going to fill in the spot. They're going to be about 18 inches to 2 feet tall.
Okay.
So you won't recognize these in
So you don't put water into the hole before you plant it?
I never put water in the hole.
Never?
Never.
Oh, that's good to know.
I never put water
I
in the
can't believe
hole.
how much I've learned.
But I will tell you that, as a rule, even if it's just rained or it's raining, I still water everything in when I plant it.
Okay.
So I water the top of this in.
All right, show me your water. I want to see how you water it in. It's right behind you.
Okay. I like using a watering can with a sprinkler head so it doesn't gouge out the soil.
Oh yeah, I don't have one.
So that's fine. But what I'll do is instead is I'll just put my hand there so it doesn't just
So that was
feel
enough
like Niagara
water.
Falls on top of it. You know, it's
Yeah.
kind of like just helping on it. And try not to water on the plant if you could avoid it. Just water around it. And if you're in a dry area, you might want to make like what we call a teapot, a little recess around, so it'll fill up the hole and catch the water.
Okay.
I don't think that's the problem up here where you live in Todd. This is supposed to be almost like a rainforest area almost, right?
Well, I don't
We get a
know.
lot of rain here.
Okay. So Brendan, say if I wanted to make this area beets, how would you have planted? So one of the things that I'm learning from you is that you're saying to have a lot of something in one area instead of a little bit of this and a little bit of that,
Yeah.
which is a big change for Holly because I've always done a little bit of this and a little bit of that.
Yeah.
All right, so just pretend this is beets in here. So how would you go ahead and plant that?
So again, it's almost like you foraging. If you go out, you get a whole bucket of a certain wild edible. It's the same with planting. If you want to make collard greens, you need to have a good amount of them. But if you're going to plant beets or carrots, you can get a stick or anything you can make. I usually put a string and I make it straight, and I make a row. And I would just take the beets or the carrot seeds and sprinkle them in all the way solid across, and that assures that you'll have enough coming up. And at the same time, you could weed them out and eat the greens. You could eat the carrot greens and the beet greens along the way as you thin them out. You could thin them out, and the carrots can grow in their final state about 1 inch or 2 apart, and the beets could be like about 2 inches apart too.
So how many rows would you do in this little tiny area here?
Oh well, okay. So you have a row here. I would do 3 rows here.
Okay.
3 rows right here. As long as and the other rule is that you got to be able to reach into it. So if this was like a big open garden, you might want to put only 2 rows so you could walk between.
Yeah.
But you're okay on your paths here, so you could just reach in and do whatever you have to do. So 1, 2, 3. And just put the carrot or beet seeds in.
Okay.
Like a solid
So
row.
I'm going to go plant my peas today
Go for it.
because it's still cold.
Yeah, you might be able to catch it towards the end of the season where it likes it because they like it cold.
Gotta have peas. I just love peas. All right. Sounds good. Thank you, bud.